Hi everybody. Well, here we are in Nicholson File Studios. It is sometime in January, and I'm getting ready to show you. It'll be March or late February or March by the time you see this, but I'm going to get ready to show you guys and demonstrate and work out how to prepare your clay and some of the tools you'll need, and then we're going to get started to understand the clay by making one of these little shrinkage tiles. It's 14 by 4 by 1 centimeter, and I measured it out to be 10 centimeters. I did this a couple of days ago. It has already shrunk 0.5 centimeters. So we have some shrinkage going on, 5% shrinkage to this level of clay, which is called leather hard. So here we go. So you're going to need a clean board, and as you can see, there's all kinds of little bits of clay on this board. So what I'm going to do is take this bucket here, and rather than sweeping these onto the floor, these little bits, I'm going to put them in the bucket, because clay contains silica, which is glass. And if you put that silica glass clay on the floor and then walk all over it and crunch it down, it is going to put glass dust up in the air. So all little bits of clay get put into the recycle bucket, and we get to recycle the clay and use it again. Now I just took an elastic off this bag, and when I am done, I am going to spin it again, take the elastic, fold the plastic bag over, and seal it up to keep the clay moist. So there are all these little things that you do when you're prepping your clay and you're just sort of thinking ahead. So here it is. I don't think I'm going to need more than 2 pounds of clay here. We are also going to make these little test tiles here. These are for testing our glazes. I hope you can see that I have my initials, the temperature we're going to, we'll talk about that, and some white slip, and here is my sort of light burning clay. So we have light burning clay, white slip, initials, and temperature on these little tiles. So we're going to do that too. Let me get these out of the way. There's never enough room. Okay. So here's my scale. Every time I use it, I want to make sure before the clay goes on there that the scale is reading at 0. And then I'm going to just cut off 2 pounds. So that's about a 4-pound bit. So let me cut this down. It's a little over 2. That's about 2 pounds. And that's what you guys should really start with. So remember, I will be repeating myself, and it might be boring to you, but I think repetition and practice are what this ceramics is all about. So I will be repeating myself. I want to keep that clay at an even consistency, evenly wet, so that it is, every time I come to it, it is at the same consistency. And that makes it easier to work. So I'm going to do a wedging technique called the ram's head wedging technique. So I'm using the palms of my hands and my fingers in the back, and I'm not pushing hard down on the clay. I'm just kind of getting it to rock in my hands. And you might be able to kind of see that curve there. I'm trying to get a tab to turn and sort of spiral around what might be called an invisible axle here in my hands. So I pick it up with my fingers, I take my palms and I push toward the middle, and that causes this tab to roll out between my hands. This clay has been in a cold studio all weekend, and it is freezing. But I have my space heater on, and the heat will be coming up this Monday morning, and the clay will warm up. So, ram's head, see him? See our little ram? Or elephant head, or dog head, I'm not sure what it is. But I need to wedge this clay for 60 times. Now what this does, clay particles are sort of plate shaped. What this does is it gets the particles all rolling and moving in the same direction. It works out any areas that are dry and wet, kind of sort of homogenizes the clay. And importantly, it squeezes out any air bubbles, or at least we hope it does. Like right there might have been, yep, that was an air bubble. So it's also a great time to just sort of get your head around what you're going to be making and doing this particular work session. Okay, so that feels good. I can go up on the end. I turned this 90 degrees, I set it on its end. Now I'm going to roll a little bit more. And honestly, you cannot wedge too much. The only time it might become a problem is if you're wedging on plaster or something that's absorbent. Because see how the moisture in the clay is leaving the clay and being absorbed on canvas. So you don't want to dry your clay out too much. But you do want to make sure it's smooth, consistent, and no air bubbles and no wet and dry areas. Okay, so I need to roll out a slab here. So I'm just going to start with the palm of my hand, pressing the clay on this side, and then pressing it on this side. Everything you do to one side, you've got to do to the other. Because the clay is going to stretch on one side, and it needs to stretch equally. So as it dries, it will dry equally. And as it shrinks, it will shrink equally. All right, so I'm going to move over to this drier part of the board so the clay doesn't stick to it. And I have these two slats that are 3/8 of an inch. So we want this slab to be kind of thick, a centimeter. It's not too bad. It's about 1/4 of an inch, a little bit over 1/4 of an inch, you know. And it's just a standard size for this particular shrinkage tile we're making. So I'm going to start rolling with this rolling pin, and I'm starting in the middle, and I'm pushing out to the end. Oops. This slab is small enough that I can pick it up by hand without distorting it too much. Flip it over. I turned it 90 degrees. I'm going to roll this way. From the middle out. And you can actually see the clay growing. It's kind of fun. I'm going to turn it again, one more time. Give it one more roll. That looks good. Okay, so I've stretched the clay a lot. You can actually see these stretchy marks. The clay might want to crack there. It might want to warp out a little there. So I'm taking this metal rib and I'm just compressing the clay on this side. And flip it over, turn it 90 degrees, and get a compression on this side. So that looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to cut out this size, which is 4 centimeters by 14 by 1. I wonder if you can see the sun's coming out. It's the new year 2021, and we had a little snow this morning. It was quite beautiful. No one is in the studio today at Nicholson File. We are right across the way from Farm Fresh, Rhode Island. And we're a couple buildings away from the steel yard, where this semester we will be going to fire our wood kiln over there. That was built by Larry Bush, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. He built 2 beautiful kilns over there, and it's a wonderful collaboration between the steel yard and RISD. Alright, so there's my shrinkage tile. Alright, if I were to, I'm going to measure, let me show you this, measure again, that 10 centimeter mark here. If I measured it here and then picked it up and put it on a board, I would distort that measurement. So first thing I'm going to do is just get this little slab onto its own board, and then I'm not going to pick this up again until it's completely dry and stiff. So I want a really clean knife. I'm going to measure very carefully 10 centimeters here, and then I'm going to make a mark and then just sort of reestablish. Still pretty sticky. And then with some sort of rounded tool, just because these are all going to look the same when they are dry, I'm going to put my initials here. I'm going to mark cone 10, which in ceramic talk is 2400 degrees Fahrenheit, and we'll talk about that. And this is Ace Strike, Jeff Ace Strike, who is a dear friend, a potter, O-E-S-T-R-E-I-C-H, Ace Strike stoneware. And you want to note the type of clay you're testing, okay? So this is just going to sit and dry today. But, you know, I have some more clay right here. So why don't I use it for something? While you're making things, you're also thinking ahead about how you're going to glaze something and how you're going to finish it. So even at the beginning of the semester, as students are putting things into kilns, you want to have some test tiles of your proposed glazes so that you can pop them in some early kilns and get some results out pronto. And that's going to help you think better about the pots you're making. So test tiles, they don't have to be gigantic, but they have to be big enough so that you can get a sense of what the glaze looks like on top of the clay and what the glaze looks on top of a white slip and what the glaze looks like, you know, what its quality is. Does it run? Does it pull away from the clay? Or is it just absolutely a beautiful thing? So I think a tile that would be, I don't know, 2 by 4 is a great size. So let me just mark that. And I'll have a little bit of extra size, but that's okay. Your test tiles don't have to be as exact as your shrinkage tile, for sure. But it's nice to have some standardized size. It makes it easier for you to store them, easier to keep track of them, easier for people to put into a kiln, you know, just better. So there we are, and it looks to me like I could maybe even get a couple more out of here. So I would really get in the habit of just anytime, you know, you can, just make some test tiles, have them ready to go, so that if you decide you want to try a new glaze, you know, you have some tiles available. So here again, I'm going to do J, D, A strike, stoneware, cone, 10. And any way you want to, you know, make your mark do. You could even figure out, if you wanted to put things into code, you could figure out some code, but just make sure you write that code down in your notebook, because it's amazing how you can forget. So once this is labeled and cut, I'm just going to make it go at a right angle. And then in the studio, we will have some white slip. I'm actually going to take this and make some more tiles when we're done with this film. But we have some white slip, and slip is just, it's a slip. It's also called an engobe. That's the technical term. An engobe is just a formulated clay in liquid form that is designed to shrink with the clay and stick to the clay and give the surface a slightly brighter, whiter appearance.